Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another great episode of Elevate to Clarity, the podcast where ordinary meets the extraordinary. We will discuss how to overcome your obstacles and level up in your purpose with other successful individuals. And I'm your host, Latasha Sly. And so let's dive right on in and get started. I am by myself today. And then I wanted to actually come on because so many may be wondering, like, what happened to Sly Education, the Sly Ed Experience podcast. And I felt like God has actually taken me in a totally different direction, and He has redirected my path and to fulfill a need that will align me with His purpose for me right now. And so I've renamed it, and I actually took a vote. Many of you actually voted for the change in the name for Elevate to Clarity from the Sly Ed Experience. I would still be having the name other projects with Sly Experience, with the Sly Ed Experience, meaning I am wanting to develop an academy. Right now I'm focusing on Elevate to Clarity. I'm writing a book. I have a journal that I'm also writing to coincide with my podcast and so many other things that are be coming down and I'll be introducing to not only my audience but those that are following me and things like that. So I just know, and those that know me that have been following me and my guests from past know that I am wanting to actually grow in my podcast journey, not only just in virtual, but I will be trying to seek live interviews. So you guys will be just look for that. It's going to be an exciting transition for me, bringing more guests on, bringing more content that I want to make sure that I am growing in my content and growing in my delivery as a host, as a moderator. But not only that, it's more so even in my belief and making sure that I have a dream. I have a dream that I want to actually turn this into something bigger. Maybe have the opportunity to gain a network deal, and just when you do something like this and you're stepping out of your comfort zone, which is definitely out of my comfort zone, because I started this journey in 2020 and I wanted to have meaningful conversations with educators and business owners, influencers on how they actually started their journey. How did they actually do what they did? And that way I can actually know, I can have these conversations by learning as well. But I was like, you know what? Let me start this podcast, and that way I can share this journey with other people that may be having the same questions as I have. Like, how did you start this business? How did you make your first million? What was your biggest failures in your journey? And so overcoming those obstacles is is what I really wanted to know, because we all, when you're starting something new, you will fail, and it's scary. And that if you see that it can be possible, even through all the adversity, through all of the pain and all of the loss of money and trying to find funding and all of those things, building a team, like what does it really look like to step out on faith if you're leaving a 9 to 5 and you're starting a business? But most importantly, just actually knowing what your purpose is, and you're actually discovering your purpose and knowing that you are actually aligned with what God's plan is. So that's basically for me. And I wanted to actually share that on my podcast. I want to share those stories. And there's so many podcasts out there right now. So many people like, okay, well, what makes you different? What makes me different is that you're getting it my way. I wanted to deliver messages and deliver a podcast the way God intended to be done, to allow Him to actually use me to make sure that I am growing, number one, and seeking Him at the same time, but taking those that may be lost, that may feel stuck and not quite sure on what the journey looks like. You still may be afraid. And I'm like, you know what? I'm over that stage right now. I've been pruned. I've gone through that pruning season, which I'll be talking a lot more about in my podcast. And again, I'm writing a book. So you might be hearing that again, that topic, as far as like the pruning process of getting rid of all the old things. And what does that look like? Because, it's just like being rejected. And I compare the two a lot, because just because you feel rejected and you wanted to actually go out for that position in that job and you didn't get it, right? And so sometimes you feel like you were just really, really ready. And I've been there, and I'll share my story in just a second. When it came down to you feeling like you were ready for this thing, this new position and this new opportunity at your job, and when it presented itself, you rejected, you didn't get it. And you're like, okay, well, what happened? What's going on? That is a sign of you being redirected. Just because you were rejected does not necessarily mean that it's a no. God is just like closing the door for you to actually be redirected to the path that He wants you to be on, and so that you can actually find the thing that's on the other side of it. So for me, it was literally something like that. I'm like, I have 20 years of leadership experience between, leading teams and even in education, higher education. But the thing about that is when it was time for me to actually be promoted, and I thought that was what I want, but deep down I felt like, you know what, I'm over this. And I knew that God was actually trying to show me something else. Like Holy Spirit was actually coming to me with more, and I was not being fed, I was not being filled. So if you know what that means, is like you're going to a job every single day and you've given all you can, you've given all that you have, and you have nothing left at the end of your 12-hour work week, right? And I was just empty, and I was in an environment to where I felt like it was just so negative, the people were toxic, and I felt like I was changing, like my posture was changing. And I feel like as a leader, my positioning matters, so I want to show up a certain type of way. And when that started to happen, I was just like, this is not it. So the promote opportunity for promotion had presented itself. And now, mind you, I am someone that has taught people on certain things, and the behaviors and talents and development and all of the things. And certain things were actually presented during the time that I was doing this interview. At that time, they actually was calling an assessment. And so for some strange reason, the things that I knew were not there. It did not show up the way it should have shown up. But my posture and my something shifted, and immediately it was like forgetting how to do something. Like if you forget how to tie your shoes, chew gum, or even ride a bike, the very thing that I've known and taught and trained and developed other people, other leaders, other managers to do, to know, it literally like left me. And I was sitting there like, what just happened? And I didn't understand it at the time. And when it was funny, because when it happened to me, it was like a confirmation saying, I didn't tell you to do this. This is not where I want you to be. So something that was so easy for me, that I had taught and trained and developed other leaders to be, other leaders, other managers to do, it was literally like fog. I had a brain fog, and I just couldn't find it. So I was saying a lot of things that just didn't make any sense. And so like it really did not make any sense on why I would actually say the things that I said, or explain it in certain ways. And I was just like, it wasn't even me. And I knew then, like, okay. And I prayed about it, and even the very next day I was just like trying to figure it out. And literally the Holy Spirit literally came to me and said, this isn't what I told you to do, and this is what it was not aligned for what's next. And so I had to make a decision. And so I made a decision, and I had to leave. So it was a hard decision, but at the same time, after you realize that you have to take a leap such as like the one I had to take, is like I enjoyed what I do. I still enjoy being a leader. I felt like in that moment it has taught me so many things. And I call it my, oh gosh, I come back to it, but it was a season to where I call it my 7 year case study, right? So because I've trained, I've promoted, I've developed people, and that's just in my nature. I have a management degree, I have a management background, and I have a master's in higher education for a reason. And so when it comes down to those things, I thrive on, developing the underdog. Someone that you people usually don't see, someone that has low self-esteem, someone that is not quite sure of themselves. And it's no accident why I'm renaming my podcast, Elevate to Clarity, because sometimes people overlook those people. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm still going to do that, but at a higher level. And when he closes the door, he closes it. And so when you take a leap such as that, it is scary. It is definitely one that you're walking into the unknown. And so I talk a lot about pruning. You'll hear that a lot on my podcast, like getting rid of all the toxic people, the toxic relationships, the job that may be stressing you out. As a woman, we have so many responsibilities. I want to be a good wife. I'm the first example, the first influencer that my boys see, my family sees, right? So I need to represent being a wife in the right way and being a mom in the right way and letting them know that I am fully present and I'm not always tired and I'm giving so much to other people, not saying that they don't matter, but I do my best in my job, so I want to show up the right way, but I also want to show up for my family the right way as a wife and as a mom, and that's important to me. And even as a believer, because if God had blessed me with my family, He blessed me with my husband, He blessed me with two boys, that is my responsibility to ensure that I show up the right way. And if I'm tired and I'm stressed out and I'm yelling and I'm so frustrated to where I can't focus, the very people that are the most important people I need to give them my all, and I need to be fully present. So with all of that being said, and I took the leap, and it has been one of those situations for me that I am definitely grateful for. Has it been easy? Absolutely not. And anyone that says that, this is why people say don't quit your job unless you actually know you have something, you have income coming in. But I haven't missed out on anything. And so that's because I really am believing that God is providing for me. He is definitely doing everything that, or providing everything that I need. The word is need, not want. And there's a difference. So if the bills are getting paid, then that's great. It's not about going to get my hair done and my nails done, all of the things, because I've never been that girl anyway. But He is definitely providing the necessary necessities to ensure that I am focused on aligning myself with His purpose for me. So, long story long, I hope that gives you a little bit more clarity on why I'm taking the direction that I'm taking it. It's just more so too to actually have more meaningful conversations about how other people actually realize what their purpose was and how did they overcome any fears or doubts that they've had, because we're not born into fear, we're not born into doubt, and God doesn't want us to be what He calls double-minded when it comes down to doing something. Should we have a job? Absolutely. He wants us to work. He wants us to be prosperous. He wants us to be wealthy. And when you can't be, do your very best if you're stressed out about money, if you're stressed out about whether your next meal is going to come from, if can you do for your family. So I'm not saying go and quit your job. That is not what I'm saying to anyone. But I realized that I had to make a change and I had to do something different. And so that's what I did to make sure that, even in that moment, I felt rejected. And I was like, well, why would this happen? And I'm like, I'm supposed to show up a certain type of way. I know my job. I have all this experience, and I felt like this is an opportunity, but it was not meant for me. And of course, some other things transpired after that, but I just wanted to make sure that I was going to be true to myself and true to who I am. And basically, even in my walk with God and my faith and my belief, to ensure that I was going to move a mountain that seemed like it was impossible to move. And He is definitely doing that right now for me. So and I hope that you guys who are listening to my podcast and actually viewing this on YouTube really understand that that I do and anything that I try to present on my podcast, and those that are coming to my podcast, is for great reason. It's not out of I don't look for clout. That's not what I'm doing. I don't care about any of those things. I literally know that there's so many of us in this world that are feeling stuck. We're feeling lost. We're so much noise in the world, and you can be confused, and you're trying to really understand like what's next and what is God really actually saying, and how do I actually build this business? What school do I go? Whatever the thing is that you're looking for to give you the clarity that you need, I always call it the clarity mindset, right? You have to go into things with a clarity mindset to ensure that you actually find what you're looking for to show up to be the best version of yourselves. And to do that, sometimes you actually have to be exposed to gain the experience, to become the expert in the thing, but you have to be in tune with what that is. Before even I actually, before me leaving my job, I will see signs, and in this thing, because God actually He works with me. The Holy Spirit actually, it's funny because He deals with me in certain ways, and He did it with me when I was a kid, so I know it's divine. And when it's time to do something different, He shifts me. But I wasn't, I saw it. I was paying attention, but I wasn't paying attention in action. I wasn't paying attention in the movement. And then, so it's like, okay, well, if you don't want to do it this way to save face, we're going to have to do it a totally different way. So, yeah, so your purpose is waiting for you. Let's just put it that way. And I hope that by tuning in and listening to Elevate to Clarity, that you gain clarity and that you understand how to actually uncover and discover your purpose, because we are born into purpose. You don't actually find it, you discover it, because God has already placed it in you. He knew us before He formed us, right? Before He placed us in our mother's womb, He already knew exactly what type of people or person you and I would become and what He want us to do in this earth. So I have a lot of conversations about that because I'm intrigued by the pruning, preparing, and positioning conversations of how other people actually discovered their purpose, and then how they're actually allowing their purpose to fuel and to lift up other people. It's not one of those things to where it's all about money. I'm not about money. I'm not about flash. So I don't, showing people about my house and my zip code and my cars and my all of those type of things. I get it because most people like just want to know certain things, but at the same time, you have to understand like who you are really. What is it that you're believing, and what environments are you placing yourself in that's allowing you to stay fog minded, lost, stuck, confused, feared. You're fearing things and you're doubting yourself, because sometimes it's in us. And if you're just, like Oprah says, that quiet still voice that's in us, like it's a real thing. It is definitely a real thing. And when you align yourself to actually be intentional about wanting to know, then you will be. And sometimes it takes you to be still, and it takes you to be consistent in your growth process. Again, it's a painful situation. It's a painful process to go through, but it is a process that you need to trust in order to actually be positioned for the new thing that you either praying for or the thing that you're seeking. And there's a difference between the thing that you're praying for and seeking, and to ensure that you're in alignment. And this is one of the things that I tell people as well, is I want you to understand that when your story and your experiences align with your purpose, you'll actually find your breakthrough. You'll literally be ready for the new position that God is actually planned for you. He'll be ready to reveal to you what it is that you're supposed to be doing. But if you're not staying still long enough to hear Him, you're going to have some problems. But it takes some time. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to be intentional. You have to realize, okay, what routines am I doing? What people are in my life right now? Like we love them, but they're not good for us. we've grown up with them, but they're not going in the same direction as you. You're trying to grow. Your mind is different. You are in a different type of space. You're not seeing things. You don't want to be in the club all the time. You don't want to, just hang out the way you used to hang out. It's you want to have the hard conversation, and the person or people that you have those conversations with, one or two things are going to happen. They're going to feel like, oh, you think you're better than me, or the other one that understands growth will probably say, you know what, I've been seeing it for a while and I totally understand, but the love is there, and we can't be friends and we can't hang out and do the same things. They're going to respect your growth. They're going to respect where God is actually taking you. So that's also another sign too, that you know what, you waited too long to have this conversation because you're trying to hold on to the old, but God is trying to actually take you through the new. And you got to have those conversations of getting rid of all of the toxic people in your life. You can't be doing all of the old things if you're trying to get into a new environment, right? You have to be able to go through a prepared season so that you can be positioned as well. So pruning is necessary, it's painful, just like, being rejected is painful, but we want to make sure that we grow and we develop, and that's what I want to make sure that I'm having those type of conversations as well. And when we're doing those things, it's like a, what is it I call it, getting unstuck and finding the clarity mindset that you need through purpose. You actually, the confidence, that's what I'm looking for. Having the confidence about your life and where you're going, it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling, like your life, your business, and your faith, and your mindset that removes the confidence. And you go through things with focus. You're intentional about your vision. You have a clear understanding of what it is that you're actually going after, right? So like God says, write the vision and make it plain. Well, when you do that, sometimes we can write everything that we want. We're gonna write everything that we want down, but you don't know how it's gonna happen. Like, what is this thing? How is it? You don't understand the why. You just know that you want to do it. But when you have a clarity mindset, everything is aligned. Everything makes sense. And even though when you don't even know how it's going to happen, you're like, you know what? I understand this. I need to take the first step so God can actually take the next step. He can direct my crooked path and make it straight, right? But yeah, so that is a lot of the things that I want you to understand and take away from it, is more so having more meaningful conversations on Elevate to Clarity, having those clarity conversations for those of us that are, feeling stuck and trying to find purpose and feeling like you're doubting yourself a little bit, or you're not quite sure on how to do anything or make the first step to actually go out for the position. Again, if it's for you, it's for you. But I also feel too that you have to be intentional about aligning yourself with what your morals and your values are, so that you can discover your purpose. Because just because it has a six-figure salary doesn't necessarily mean that you should actually go for it, because six figures, the more money, the more problems. Let's be real. I've had salaries to where I've made a lot of money, but it did not make me happy. It literally did the very opposite. It did not make me happy, and I was just like, you know what, this is not for me. And I remember one job that I had, did very well, and I sat in my office and I literally had to type up my resignation letter because I'm like, this is not it. And so if that's the case, then you have to understand that don't chase the money. And I can say don't chase the money, chase the dream, understand the purpose, just align yourself with what makes you happy. And again, I totally understand having responsibilities at home, having families to take care of, and especially in this thick unknown climate of a culture and environment and world we're living right now. We want to make sure that you're stable and you have stability, but you can also do both. You have a plan. What does that look like? I'll talk about that. I have a couple of steps in my clarity, some clarity steps that I actually have taken through my process of preparing for this next season that God is walking me through, taking me through, right? To ensure that I'm ready and for my new position. So I will be going through that, like what are the steps to make sure that you are very clear? What does a clarity mindset looks like? and then two, within faith and business. But yes, I wanted to make sure that I had this conversation with my listeners to give you a little bit more insight. Like, where did this come from? Why are we changing the name? That's because I have something in me that I need to get out. And I felt like I've had so many people come up to me, even on my podcast or in conferences or in meetings, and they're just like, how did you know? How did you know that this is what you're supposed to be doing? I'm so stuck, I'm so lost. And even with our kids and those that are coming, that's graduating school, high school and college, mind you, they're so afraid of making the transition because things are not certain, because we're not preparing them the way they should be prepared. We're not having the right conversations, especially those that are entering high school, for coming out of high school going into college. They're so afraid of what's next. Is it going to be something that I'm going to enjoy? Is it going to give me the next thing? Am I going to have all of this debt? It's a lot of the unknowns. But then too, on the flip side of that, we have those that are graduating college, that maybe let's just stick it with leadership. They're not feeling prepared to go into these new positions as this new generation of leaders, because they feel like, okay, you give me all of the process, but am I really ready? And I know what that feels like as well, because again, I was 22, 23, graduating college, and I'm the youngest leader in my department, but yet I'm leading those that are like 20, 30 years older than me. So that's a big thing. But you can't lead people right now, lead this generation the same way we were leading back then. So we have to be able to change the way we're leading, the way the conversations that we're having, the things that are important to this generation is not the same thing that's important to us when we were actually going into leadership back then. We have to be definitely what I call is lead or have purpose driven leaders in our organizations. But that's a no here nor there. We'll talk about that on another episode. But I am wanting, before I let you go, I'm actually watching, out of any of you actually watching the House of David. It is really, really good. I've been watching The House of David because we all know that the story of David is very intriguing, because he was actually being prepared for something, being prepared to become a leader, and he wasn't even aware of it, right? So even after Samuel actually prophesied that he was going to be this king, the story right now. So if you have not seen it, I would say binge watch, because they only drop the episodes on Thursdays right now. As you're watching this episode in the midst of the House of David, and I think it's on Prime. You may be able to get it somewhere else, but that's where I'm watching it. So I binge watched the first 3 episodes, and then I'm actually starting to watch it on Thursday. So you can actually watch it on Thursday if you're not watching that whole Mr. Beast thing. I think that's done now, but anyway, but it's really, really good. Why? I relay a lot of the messages and a lot of the conversations to David, and being someone that I consider myself a purpose driven leader, because I'm very intentional about showing up the right way as a leader. I'm very intentional about what I'm saying and who I'm saying it to ensure that anyone is in my path, I'm lifting you up. I want you to actually gain as much information to grow and to discover your purpose, and to actually know that you can do the very thing that God has placed you on this earth to do. And he can even do that in your quiet time, and you're not even aware of it, like he did with David. Fighting lions and bears, and thinking that, he was being left out and singled out of, his brothers, because they were out, fighting in wars and doing all these things. But God was like, because he was a man after God's heart. And when you are someone that you're seeking something and you're actually having conversations with God, he is definitely speaking, but are you listening? Are you paying attention? But you also have to make sure that you're doing your part in the waiting season to be prepared, and you're prepared for the new position. He will not bless you. He is not going to bless me with things that we're praying for if we're not ready for them. Right? And so watch House of David, and then think about it. If that were you, like, just, put yourself in that position and ask yourself and be honest with yourself. If God blessed you today with the very thing that you said that you're wanting, the very thing that you say that you're ready for, are you really ready? If he blesses you and he opens up that door and you want to be this big speaker, you want to be this multi-million-dollar coach, life coach, business coach, entrepreneur, whatever, if he really did that today, without it being one of those watered down, I'm doing what everybody else is doing, this seemed like the place or the thing that I should be doing mentality. If it's not that, you definitely want to be honest with yourself, because he does not want you to fall, stumble, or trip. Even though sometimes we have to fail forward to make sure that we actually come back from it. But if you're not ready, the door is not going to be open. But at the same time, if he's taken you from something, he's closed that door, that chapter of your life, trust and believe he has something bigger and greater for you. So I want you to trust and believe that. But those are the conversations that I will be having on our new named podcast, Elevate to Clarity. And I want you to continue to, comment, like, subscribe, to get tapped into all of the great guests and the things that are coming. I want to make sure that I pour into you like others pour into me, and they have been pouring into me throughout my journey. And it has been a journey. Like I've told many, I lost my mother when I was 12. You're going to hear that story a little bit more as well later. But I want to make sure that, yeah, let's stay connected. I am one that is. I am a believer. I'm a believer of Christ. And I also know that I have a purpose. And I know that God has a plan. And if you're tapped in, I want you to get tapped in. So, like, comment, subscribe, follow, all of those great things. I'm on Apple, Spotify. So, yeah, this is a place where we're going to overcome our obstacles and level up in our purpose. So I look forward to this. I hope that you've gained a little bit more clarity on what Elevate to Clarity, what Latasha Sly was going to be about. But yes, this is going to be a season of growth. This is going to be a season of great content. This is going to be a great season of connection and intentionality for me. And I want to take you along. So, again, this has been another great episode of Elevate to Clarity with Latasha Sly. Remember, all things are possible, but clarity makes them elevate. And I'll see you at the top.